Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first Strategic Planning Committee meeting of the year. Is this your first meeting joining us, Shebra, coming back?
I'm coming back, yeah.
All right, well, we welcome you back. All right. So the Strategic Planning Committee provides us with the opportunity to delve into areas of the strategic plan to better understand where we're making progress and what we need to do better. So last December, the Strategic Planning Committee provided feedback and input into the development of the pathway to college, career, and community. That feedback helped shape a presentation that was done before the BOE at our April 20th meeting. In this committee, we're going to delve deeper into how that works and what it means for our community. It is important that our community understand the intent and the function of the pathway. This committee is going to serve as an important sounding board for the rollout and implementation. The pathway is our system to support families in monitoring student performance. It also serves as a student progress monitoring system for educators in identifying the strengths and areas of support needed in various subjects, therefore allowing for the provision of targeted support and interventions. How does it work with our existing monitoring systems? How does it function to support families and educators in the real world? All of this will be the focus of our discussions. So today we're joined by Ms. Stephanie Sharon. I always say Sharon. I always say Sharon. I want to be French. What can I say? The Chief of Strategic Initiatives, and Dr. Keisha Addison, Director of Shared Accountability. They're here to provide an update on the pathway, but before we begin, I'd like to let my fellow board members introduce themselves, starting with Ms. Evans.
Good morning. So great to be here to have this conversation. Shebra Evans, District 4.
Ms. Harris.
Yeah, good afternoon, or good morning, everyone. Lynn Harris, I use she, her pronouns, and this is my third year on this committee, and I'm really enjoying the evolution. Looking forward to the conversation.
And we're also joined by board staff. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Lori Christina Webb. I'm the Chief of Staff for the board.
Good morning, Juan Ramos, Administrative Services Manager for the board.
Thank you. So now I'll turn it over to Ms. Sharon, since she doesn't like Sharon.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wolf. And thank you to the Strategic Planning Committee. This committee has been so integral in really helping to shape the work of the district when we think about the strategic plan. So today, as Ms. Wolf said, we are coming back.
I forgot one thing.
Sure, go ahead.
We do have an informational summary from the previous meeting. Does anyone have any changes? I didn't think so. So thank you. We can continue.
No worries. So as Ms. Wolf stated, we used the committee last year to really help shape what the pathway to college, career, and community readiness was going to look like. Some of the feedback that we have gotten over the years is that our community really wanted a very easy and transparent way of understanding what our students need to achieve throughout their academic career. And the beauty of the pathway to college and career and community readiness is that it doesn't just infuse the academic milestones, but it also takes in a whole separate component, which is the core competencies and experiences that we are saying that all students need to have by the time that they leave MCPS. And that is a real equity focus for us, so that we know that our students, our goal is that our students, regardless of zip code, school, area, farm status, race, that they are still able to participate in the same activities that other students are across the district. So the purpose of today, if we could go to the next slide, is twofold. One, we want to provide an update since we last shared with the full board. We shared with the full board on April 20th of last year what the pathway to college, career, and community readiness was, and a lot of that final vision on that April 20th board meeting was really aligned with what feedback we received from this committee in structuring and building that out. So we spent the year last year really building out what the framework was going to look like and identifying a solid vision for what the academic milestones would look like. This year, we are starting to work on and expand to define the second component of the pathway. Because as I said previously, we have our academic milestones and then we have our competencies, which are how we refer to as our softer skills and experiences. So part of today is to dig in much deeper with this committee to get some feedback around the experiences that we are currently starting to identify to say, these are the ones we want all students to have as a district in order to help us start to really frame out what those are so that we can start building the actual experiences out appropriately. So today, we're gonna refresh everyone on the pathway of a quick overview. We're gonna talk a little bit about how the pathway was developed. We're gonna talk about how we've engaged our community so far in educating them about the pathway. We're gonna talk about the data dashboards that were recently launched for our internal staff, so they are actually able to use the data for the pathway academic milestones to really help drive school improvement planning for their individual schools and students. And then we're gonna really unpack those competencies and experiences that are very much so in draft form. So similarly to December, where we brought to the board the committee, very draft idea around this, we're coming back to you in the draft form because we really wanna get your feedback in helping to shape the final product. So that's how we will end our conversation today. Next slide, please. So one of the ways that we've engaged our community as far as building understanding of what the pathway is we created a video. This video is available in Spanish and English. We did ask all schools to share this video with their school communities and back to school night. And we thought it was a great way to start off this meeting, 2 minutes to kind of give an overview of what the Pathway to College Career Community Readiness is. So if we could roll the video.
MCPS created a new guide to help families, students, and teachers work together to ensure all students are successful. The guide's name, The Pathway to College Career and Community Readiness. Its main goal, to identify a student's strengths and needs so schools can provide targeted supports and interventions. Here's how it works. Schools collect student data in 2 key areas: academic milestones and core competencies. Parents will receive information about whether their child is meeting or not meeting these specific benchmarks. The milestones are measured by a variety of classroom, local, and state exams. Each helps predict if students are learning academic concepts on time and are on the road to graduation. The data and information collected will be used to address any learning gaps before students transition to new grade levels, college, or the workforce. Milestones include early literacy skills, reading by grade 3, meet or exceed grade level or course standards in mathematics and English language arts, on track for graduation, college and career readiness, complete and pass Algebra 2 with a grade of C or higher, graduation. These academic milestones work hand in hand with our core competencies. The core competencies include such areas as leadership, career development, digital technology, teamwork, ethics, critical thinking, and well-being. Experiences with these competencies will be threaded throughout daily instruction and cultivated by system-wide activities such as outdoor ed, music programs, sports, field trips, finance park, and college fairs. By measuring these core competencies and academic milestones, MCPS has created a powerful guide to provide greater opportunities and supports for students and to prepare them for their future. To learn more, visit this website.
Thank you. We're going to have an opportunity to see the website as well, so that you can see what resources are available to our community that we have been starting to work on to build understanding around the pathway. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Addison to talk in a little bit more detail about 2 things: how the pathway was developed, as well as how it is connected to all of the other work that we are engaging in alignment with the strategic plan as a system.
Thank you. Good morning. Next slide, please. So as Ms. Sharon shared, the first thing I wanted to remind us of is the development of the pathway. And this visual is really about the development since the last time we came here to the Strategic Planning Committee. So as Ms. Sharon shared earlier in the conversation, in December, we brought you kind of our concept, our idea of what we wanted this pathway to look like. And based on your feedback, you told us it's a little too complex. It's not going to help families, and we needed to rethink and revisit what we were planning to do to kind of help in this regard. And so based on your feedback during January to March, we engaged in some additional feedback from not only you all as a committee, but also from school-based staff, other stakeholders, to refine our concept and bring it forward to kind of where we are today. And so again, April the 20th was our preliminary launch, public-facing launch at the superintendent's A&S meeting, which was for principals, as well as we brought it to the board around that time and got some information for school-based leaders. And at that time, because the pathway is based on end-of-year measures, what we shared with principals was their preliminary information. So where are you? Are you on track? Because it was like a mid-year. So we said, if we were to run this data right now, how would your school look as it relates to students in regard to the pathway? And then I skipped ahead, but the April 20th was the public introduction of the pathway during our board presentation. Next slide, please. All right, so how does it all connect? One of the things that we frequently hear from our colleagues, from our community, is MCPS has a lot of different frameworks, initiatives, projects. So one of the things we wanted to intentionally do on this slide is to show you how everything connects. And so the visual is really intended to show that everything is centered around the goal of the strategic plan. We know that overarching aspect of the house that says we're preparing students for college, career, and community. And so we have the pathway for college, career, and community readiness. Connected to that is our theory of action. Our theory of action espouses what we need to do to ensure that we have staff and students who are ready to learn and staff who can have the professional learning that they need. Then we have evidence of learning. And so people sometimes like, well, but we already have evidence of learning. Why do we have the academic milestones and the pathway? Well, they are complementary, right? So evidence of learning is our multiple measures framework. The measures of the academic measures of the pathway are embedded in our evidence of learning framework. And so we continue to recognize the value and importance of multiple measures when we assess what students know and are able to do. Additionally, we have our anti-racist system action plan. We learned a lot from the anti-racist audit in terms of the extent to which we're meeting the needs equitably for all students, all families. And so this provides yet another structure as it relates to reporting and accountability and performance. And finally, the blueprint for Maryland's future. Our pathway aligns to this. There's an expectation for Maryland's blueprint for the future. We align to that. We have our state assessment data. We have our college and career readiness that's measured at grade 10. So a number of those measures overlap as well. So that's intended to show that we don't have a separate system that does not align to state expectations for where students should be. It's all parallel, connected, and heading and pointing students in the same direction. I'll turn it back over to Ms. Sharon for the next slide.
So since the last time we talked about the pathway to college, career, community readiness, which at April 20th at the full board meeting, we've been doing a lot of work figuring out how we start our information campaign with our community. If we could go to the next slide. So we have shared this slide in previous presentations, and it represents the 5 steps of planning when for family engagement and the 5 levels of engagement. So our team actually went through these 5 levels in order to start determining how we were going to be communicating and engaging our community, and I mean our internal stakeholders and external stakeholders around the pathway. So we have spent a lot of time right now, as you can see on the arrow, in the informational phase. We have done a lot of things around this. We have created resources for schools that were used during pre-service week to build the understanding of the staff around the pathways. We have asked a back to school night. We have sent materials and resources to schools for the community in order to start building understanding. We are meeting with some of our external advocacy groups to build their knowledge and understanding, and also seek input on how we can best collaborate with their communities in order to build understanding and use this as a tool for our community to be able to really assess, where is my child in this, and what should I be asking if my child is not currently meeting these academic milestones. So that's some of the work that we have been doing to engage our community. If you go to the next slide, you all actually have a copy in front of you of what's up here. And I'm actually, if our fabulous TV team can shift it to my laptop right now so I can show the website.
And while you're shifting, I just wanted to
Yeah.
acknowledge that the previous slide that you had, to consider these steps for engagement, is according to board policy.
Yes, to the newly revised policy. Yes,
Wanted
thank
to
you.
connect that for our millions of viewers.
Yes, absolutely. So I will wait for, as comms is pulling up the.
MCPS created
Oops. Thank you very much, the website. We also launched this website. We know websites aren't the be-all and end-all of communication tools, but it is one way in order to be able to access information. And I wanted to utilize this website to also show our millions of viewers what you all have on paper as well. So what you have on paper, and this actually took a lot of time to do, is we broke down this tool, and all families receive this back to school night, and we're also giving this to our advocacy groups and our communities, is because something that we always hear is, well, that's great. My kid is supposed to hit this particular level on dibbles by the time they end kindergarten, but what if they're not? What do I do? What does it mean? What questions should I ask? And that is why we created this document. You'll see it's 3 separate pages, and we did that purposefully, that you have in paper. So you have the elementary document, the middle school document, as well as the high school document. And what it does on the back, and I'm gonna pull it up here on the screen too so that you see an example. And as you can see on our website, we have this translated into all 7 of our languages. And we also have our pathway graphics all translated. So if I pull up, I'm gonna just pull up elementary school. You can see, and I know it's small, but on the front, we worked with communications, we worked with some of our PCCs, and we worked with some of our community groups in order to help us craft language in a community-friendly way so that they could really digest what this means for their child. So on the front is just very basic information. This is what the pathway is. The QR code takes them directly to the website where they can learn more. And then, as you see on the back, this is really the power of this document. And as I said, we are right now at the information part of community engagement, really trying to inform folks. But we want to get to the empower phase of engagement with our community. And you can see is what we did is we identified each of the milestones, and we said, why is this even important? So when you see in kindergarten, and I know it is very small print, so for our viewers, in kindergarten it says, research shows children who develop strong literacy skills in their early years perform better academically throughout their schooling years. Skills such as letter recognition, building sight words, and learning to read and write lay the foundation for future academic success. Also for our staff members, this was also really important for us to lay out, why was this measure the one that we identified as being the most important for us to be focusing on in this framework? Then you'll see in the next column, it talks about, well, how are we measuring that? This is where it talks about the DIBELS test, when it's given, and what the score should be on the test. You have seen through the board presentations that we've been doing for the full board on the data, there's also a report that goes home for parents on the results that their child gets. So then what we did on the last column is, what questions should you ask your teacher? Right? So if my child is not hitting that 420 or higher, for instance, in DIBELS, what should I ask? And we worked with the curriculum office on this as well, so that we were sending a common message out to our community. So this is our first step, our first informational step. We know that as we move forward and we think about those layers of family engagement as outlined, we also are going to need to work on utilizing this tool and others to really empower our families for 2 reasons. One, build their knowledge and understanding of what we're measuring and what success looks like in MCPS. but then also have them understand what resources we're providing and are available to them to support their child, whether or not their child is maybe on target, below, or even far above and exceeding that target for the academic milestone. Ms.
I'm
Wolf?
just curious, did you have any of the parents wonder, I guess if I was a parent, I would be concerned if my child, if you say they should have 420 and they had 418. I mean, are you upsetting the parents by making them think their child is not doing well? Or do you understand what I'm asking?
Absolutely.
This would disturb me if I had 418 and you're saying 420 and I didn't know what to do because I'm just not at the same educational level as, say, parent X over here. That would really disturb me. I guess what I'm wondering is there really a range that's satisfactory so that the parent doesn't become overwhelmed thinking that there's something wrong? Do you understand what I'm asking?
So, and I think, and that is why it's important when as we're working on this and building the capacity of this, that what we're trying to communicate and what we are communicating to the families is that while there is this is where we want kids to be, and then if Dr. Addison wants to add anything from a lens of the scores, so to speak, we are not making the pathway to college, career, and community readiness a lock and key approach. And that's what we're really trying to communicate clearly, that it's not if you don't hit this exact number, you're not going to be successful.
That's what's not coming through to me. Maybe it's coming through to the rest of the people. But that's the part, because I skipped over, of course, to grade 12 and said, so now what if I have a 2.9? You're not going to graduate me? You know?
Right.
This was very disturbing in some ways to me, so just something for you to think about.
Yeah, and just building on Ms. Wolf's comments, to me, I sort of think about how can we communicate with everybody in a way that really resonates, that, education is a process, not a destination.
Yes.
So yes, we have these benchmarks, but just say your child, you get this, and it tells a kindergarten parent a composite score we want to see at 420, and your child is at 405. How are we also sharing? But you know what? That's okay, because this is a process, and we're all continuing to learn, and we'll get there. I mean, that kind of a message, and sort of infused, and this is how.
Yep.
And I think, Ms. Harris and Ms. Wolf, to what you both shared in terms of thinking about what the academic milestone expectations are, the first piece, and Ms. Sharon shared this in terms of we are at that informed phase, right? So we want everyone to get the same information at the same time to understand, here's where we would like our students to be. But to both of your points, we also know that if a student does not hit this mark, that does not mean that they will not be prepared for college, career, or community. And part of what we also need to continue to do is to build out what are the additional resources that are available for families. What resources do we as a district provide to support students who are not yet there? So this says where we want students to be, but we know we won't have everyone there. So what are we doing to support to get them there? And also affirming for families that it's okay if they're not there yet.
Yeah, I think it's very important that the parents realize this is a snapshot in time.
Yes.
You don't even know how the child felt that day. And that's what I wasn't getting through. Go ahead, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to echo that, because I think, and to me also sort of emphasizing that in so many ways, what we're laying out here in these sort of milestones, that's what helps us meet each student's needs.
Right.
Because if we weren't kind of doing some ongoing engagement and assessing, we wouldn't be able to pick up, maybe there's the letter recognition is here, but we're not quite seeing that sight word development. So that's what we need to focus on for Joey here. But for Amanda over here, maybe it's different. I mean, so and emphasizing that these are tools.
Tools, yes.
Not, I don't know what judgmental, a lot of people think of these testing assessments in sort of judgmental ways, and they're not. I mean, this is just to help us help students continue their educational path. Yeah.
And so I was definitely agree with my colleagues, but how do we take a gentle approach at doing both? Say, here's some information for you, but also here's an indication that your child may need additional support or help? Because I think oftentimes what happens is our parents are sometimes the last to figure out that their students are in need of additional support and interventions. They typically find out when they've gotten that letter to say, hey, we are welcoming your child to come to this program, or here's some information. So it has to be an approach to both, right? And I was going to say this too, and I don't want to throw our parents off, but I feel like what triggers parents to think about where their students are at or where they're going is when they look at their report card. Is there a way for us, I see you have this QR code, is there a way for us to put that on report cards to trigger parents to maybe go to figure out the pathways to college, career, and community readiness? Because for some reason or another, maybe somebody didn't get to that open house or to that meeting where the school provided the information. But I know for me, I'm always flipping over the report card to look at all the different acronyms or initials to see what that's referencing to my child. And if I see a QR code, it's going to spark curiosity from me. I know we have Parent View. I know that we're trying to get everybody to go to Parent View. I just went to Parent View to kind of pull up the report card area, and I know that we have different just symbols and stuff like that. I just thought, is there a way to trigger parents to go look at this information that we have that will help them to understand the various pathways for their students and to be able to help support them along the way if we put that QR code on the report card. So I know that's one more thing for somebody to do, but it could make it easier on our schools in trying to make certain that we get this information in the hands of every parent in the event that they don't come to those community meetings. They still have a way to access this information. So just a thought that I just wanted to share.
No, I think that's great feedback. I'm going to bring that back to the team, see what we can do.
I think that's very interesting, because I flip over to the back and then I bring it. I see Nikki in the audience and ask her, well, what exactly does this mean? You know? But I have a question, and it's sort of philosophical, I guess. Each one of these say, what can I do at home to help my child's reading skills? Now, that's fine for me, you know? But for a lot of parents, that's sort of an intimidating question. I'm wondering if there's another way we could get that same information across. So say I am a Hispanic parent, you know, and I don't even speak English well enough to be able to help with the literacy skills. Is there a way you could say, like, the library has programs or this? Because just putting out there, what can I do at home, is going to make me feel inadequate if I can't do the things that you're saying. And I know you can't put everything into a document. I understand that. But I'm wondering, could you do a FAQ type thing and say, here are some things as a parent you could do if you're in kindergarten or if you're in third grade and your child isn't? Because just seeing that, and I'm a parent, I might say, even at my level, I say, oh God, this is just another thing I have to do.
I think that's great, and great feedback, and that is exactly the trajectory that we are now working on around, is creating the resources, just like you said. We just couldn't all fit it, like you said, on this document, but that is exactly what we're doing, and we're trying to work with our teaching staff as well on how that they're providing that information to the community.
I was going to say that's a great idea from that Ms. Wolf discussed, because at the Communication and Stakeholder Engagement Committee meeting, we had the library here, and they're doing so many things for free for our students, and that's the one place that we always try to push our students to go, and where they do go all throughout the year, particularly in the summer. And so what a great way. So definitely having a FAQ sheet that we put online somewhere, or everybody puts, that would be great.
Ms. Harris.
Yeah, I agree. You know, the libraries are amazing partners to us. They really are. And I'm just sitting here kind of reflecting as my colleagues are talking. And one lens that I sort of am looking at this in is, we do have some parents that look at this kind of data in a very competitive way. And we hear from our students that that is causing them a lot of stress and anxiety. And so how we can, and believe me, I get that we are in a time and place where people are expecting schools to do way more than they've ever asked schools to do before, and some things that, I mean, really are sort of outside, you know, the orbit of what schools should be doing. But how we can communicate in ways that can help emphasize the fact that every student is unique and different and valuable, and they bring different strengths, different needs, unique resilience. And so to kind of message this in ways that can help alleviate some of that performance pressure. By far not all of our students, but some of our students do feel. Yeah. And, you know, just kind of emphasizes the fact that this is the work to help us, help students achieve in a kind of an ongoing and continuous way. People hit benchmarks at different times and in different ways, and it's all okay. And, you know, I don't know. But, yeah.
Point.
Yeah.
It's a good point. I think you have to sell it as a partnership, you know, and that your child may not be at this level, but this is all that we're trying to do to help them be the best that they can be. Because I, like Lynn, think that this would cause, as a parent, a lot of stress if I saw that my child wasn't meeting these benchmarks. And then you're going to pass the stress on to the child, you know.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think it does go a lot into the messaging because, you know, then you have the other side of that that we heard loud and clear in the anti-racist audit, where families said that they didn't know what success was. And how do you define that? So, you know, it's about balancing those two things. It's like we need to be clear and transparent, but then we also need to message this, as you both indicated, around the fact that if your kid does get a 418 or even lower than that, that doesn't mean in kindergarten they're hopeless. That's it. You know, you're not going to graduate high school. And I think that's where and that's where the challenge is, right? Is that making sure we get all of our staff, all of our teachers, all of our administrators on that same page to be communicating it effectively and in that way from a supportive lens. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you. And this is why we bring it to the Strategic Planning Committee, because you guys always give us great feedback on how to move forward. So if we go to the next slide. So some of the next steps is we are, again, developing new communication resources for teachers and families to use the milestones at the November parent-teacher conferences. So some of the feedback that you just provided will be embedded in the resources and support that we give teachers in how they can message some of this information during parent-teacher conferences when they're talking about student progress. So that messaging, as you said, is going to be so critical in how they do that. So we are working on building that out, and we've been collaborating with teachers and school-based administrators on what they need in order to be able to communicate that effectively. We're also working with our community partners to build understanding because we really want to get to that empower phase, right? Where we're empowering our community to utilize these milestones to support their students' education. And then lastly, we're working on building a communication plan for student engagement around this. We have talked to students as we built the pathway and the academic milestones. We got feedback and input from them as we were building and what they wanted, what their concerns and considerations are. But now we really want to pull them into this process as well as we are working on that information and that empowering phase. We really want to make sure that our students are empowered with this information as well. And as Ms. Harris indicated, we also don't want to create undue anxiety for our students. So how we are working with students is going to be a whole nother lens and frame around this.
Question. Can you talk a little bit about so I hear you mentioning how we're going to work with the teachers and with the families. How are we working with our school counselors? Because they have the contact and the connection with our students, and they're also the ones that are sometimes seeing things that parents may not see in terms of the interests. I'll just use Naviance as an example, how they go in there and they put information in. So how are we helping to build the capacity for our school counselors with the pathway to college, career, community readiness, and supporting our students and even helping them to be owners of their education?
So I think that's a whole nother scope that you just point out that we have to, that's going to be critical in us including, is working directly with counselors. So that's something that we're going to follow up on and think about what supports they specifically need, because their supports are going to look a little different than what a teacher would need for parent-teacher conferences. So that we're going to work and follow up on.
For sure, and I didn't, and I wasn't, and I don't. You're not trying to imply that, but I just want to make it clear to our millions of viewers that I wouldn't think that it would be the same, but just the connection that
Yes.
our counselors are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
That's
you,
great.
Ms. Sharon.
Thank you for that.
Question about your student engagement. Where is that coming from? I'm always concerned that we're always dealing with our student leadership and not with just our student body. So I was concerned that we get everyone involved, or opinions from every level of student engagement that you could get.
Yes, so we're going to do a two-prong approach with that. One, we are going to work with our student leadership, excuse me, group, but then we're also going to identify with principals students that they would recommend so they can help recruit good students that would be part of with the diverse needs of our student body to come together to help give us feedback too. So we're going to collaborate directly with them on that.
That's good, because one time as this sticks in my mind that I was visiting Kennedy High School, and the students told me they don't know when things are going on, when people want to ask questions. These are the students that are just came in to talk to me. So I think it's very important that we get feedback from regular kids.
Yes. Yes, and honestly, the schools are the best places to ask who those regular kids are that we need to interact with. So yes, absolutely. Okay, next slide. So this is another brief video that we're going to show you, but we've talked a lot so far in this conversation around how we're engaging our community around utilizing this information to help support student success and building their capacity to understand it and use it as a tool. Now I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit to what we're doing and what we're providing our internal staff in order to utilize this information to engage in action planning and decision making to support students both in the classroom, to support school improvement planning. And what we launched at the start of this school year is our pathway dashboards. We launched this at A&S, in August to all of the principals, and we have recently opened up this dashboard to all staff, and in 1 month we have had more than 10,000 hits on the dashboard. We were able to look at some of the analytics. So this tool is being used to help see student progress and to help make decisions. So I thought the best way to show you what this dashboard looked like was to show you the video that we put together educating our administrators on what this dashboard could do. So if we could roll that video.
Welcome to the Montgomery County Public Schools Pathway Dashboard. This dashboard is available to all administrators and central office staff to review key data points that are updated nightly to describe current district and school demographics, as well as student performance across elementary, middle, and high school pathways. Let's take a look at how to navigate this dashboard so you can easily locate and share the information it provides to support your school improvement planning. Let's begin with the menu on the left. In this menu, you will see that the dashboard can be focused to data about demographics and pathways at the district, school group, and individual school levels. Let's first take a look at district demographics, since this is the default view when first accessing the dashboard. At the top of the page, you will notice the total number of enrollment deviation, attendance rate, and farms ever. To learn more about what each of these data points represents, hover over the I to read a brief description. For example, attendance rate is found from the total number of days students attended divided by the total number of student membership days. Because this is an interactive dashboard, each of these data points, including those below, are dynamic and are adjusted based on any selected filters. As an example, let's filter the enrollment for a single grade level, such as kindergarten, by clicking on the grade level bar in the enrollment by grade box, and you'll notice the numbers for all displays will adjust accordingly. To remove the selected filter, you can click on the item a second time or click on another item to filter by that. If you need to know the exact numbers for each of the filtered areas, you can hover over the visual or use the table located below each category of information. To view demographic data at the individual school level, expand the menu for MCPS Pathway and select School Demographics. Be sure to select your school from the drop-down menu at the top, as you will have access to summary data for all schools. Once a school is selected, the ability to view and filter the data is done in the same way as demonstrated earlier. To view data related to any of the pathways, you can either click on the link in the upper right corner of the dashboard to view the pathway of the level currently focused to, or by using the menu on the left. The menu on the left will allow you to choose between the district, group, or school pathway. At the district level, you will see summary data of all elementary, middle, and high schools in MCPS. To review the criteria for each pathway component, hover over the I in the title. To view a demographic breakdown of the percentages of each pathway component, hover over each graph. The school group pathway page provides summary data for elementary, middle, and high schools from each of the 3 teams from the Office of School Support and Wellbeing. For school-specific pathways, click on the desired level pathway under MCPS Pathway, then select the school from the dropdown. For some of the pathway components, if you are an administrator for the school selected, you will be able to click on the student icon in the upper left corner of the data display to view a student list for the data represented. In addition to viewing and filtering the data found on this dashboard, you also have the ability to export, share, or highlight data in a variety of ways. Across the top of every dashboard page, you have the ability to export your current view as a PowerPoint image or as a PDF. To export specific categories of data, you can hover over the graphic, click on the 3 dots, and export it into Excel. If you prefer to share a link to what you are viewing with another administrator who also has access to the dashboard, click on the Share menu at the top and copy the link to send via email or other electronic means. You will also see this option after clicking on the 3 dots or More Options menu while hovering over any data display. When presenting to a large group, if you prefer to focus the group's attention to a particular piece of data, you can use the Spotlight tool, also found under the More Options menu. And if needed, you can also make the image larger for viewing by clicking on the Focus Mode icon. Finally, if you would like to receive regular updates to any of these data reports, you can subscribe to a report using the menu at the top of any page and schedule a subscription. For additional information, please be sure to review our support guide link in the description below.
So a couple things I want to clarify that video of what you saw, because we're really excited about this tool. One, after A&S, it was so widely, I mean, the principals stood up and clapped. I don't think I've ever been in an A&S meeting where they stood up and clapped for a tool to help them with their work. But we got inundated with requests. We want this person to have access. Because initially, for initial launch, we just said, let's just give it to the administrative central office. So we opened it up to everybody. So everybody that is teachers, et cetera. If you have an MCP, you have access to the internal dashboard. Additionally, we're building, so this was the initial launch. Additionally, we're building monitoring dashboards. So we were just talking, this is not only the be all and end all, that one data point. We're building monitoring dashboards that align. So right now we're working on elementary dashboards, do all the same thing, but what are the elementary data points that the elementary teachers want to be able to, and the principals say, how do we look at this real quick? How can we see in the visualization, and then how can we engage in fast and rapid action planning? The other component of this that's so powerful is that we created separate views for all of the principal supervisors. So the principal supervisors can pull up with a click of a button their schools and see snapshot, who's doing well, who's not, and so that they can, though, when they go out and visit and support the school improvement planning process, they have the information they need, and it all aligns with the pathway. And the exciting part is that this is only the beginning. We're also launching, and this is where we can go to the next slide and then I'll take questions, external dashboards. for the community.
You anticipated the question.
So we are the team that's working on this, and I do have to give a shout out to the student data systems team in the technology office run by Val De Silva, because they are the ones that have designed and launched all of this. And it is a huge undertaking, but it is a necessary undertaking to ensure our focus is on student achievement. So we also have heard repeatedly from our community anti-racist action plan, huge component of this is transparency around progress. How are we able to see? You all know, communications committee knows that, I can't use the website, I can't find information. How do we do this? So actually, little sneak preview, the December 5th annual, my favorite presentation of the year on the annual report, we're gonna be presenting the external dashboards and launching it for the public. So what they will include, they will look very similar to what you saw on the internal, obviously not with student, you're not gonna be able to download student information, but those external dashboards, and this is where, Ms. Harris, you and I were speaking around the schools at a glance. So we're taking those schools at a glance documents, and we are converting them to a dashboard format. There will be downloadable data options available. Not every single piece of information is gonna have a downloadable option, but as a community member, I'm gonna be able to go and I'm gonna be able to see the data points for my school broken out by demographics so that we're increasing that transparency, which again, we heard loud and clear in the anti-racist action, audit report around the need around the transparency for our data. And we're doing this all around the pathway because that is what we're saying is our external tool. So we're really excited. I heard Ms. Harris yesterday in the budget work session talk about beta testing. So for our external dashboards, we are working frantically because we have an initial launch for December 5th, and then we're going to be adding components to it throughout the year because you can't do it all at once. And we are actually going to be engaging in November in beta testing with some of our community stakeholders so they can see the functionality and give us some feedback as we continue to roll it out. But this is how we are holding ourselves accountable, both internally and externally in alignment with the pathway to college career community readiness so that we are really focusing our energy on student success. And I also would be remiss if I didn't also note that this is not the only data tool that we are having especially our internal staff utilize. This data visualization offers them a quick snapshot because you can see very quickly where you're doing well, where you're not doing well. But we have a whole nother platform called Performance Matters that is an extremely powerful tool that we're actually linking with the dashboards. So if I want, because what the dashboards don't do is I can say, these are all the kids in my school who are not meeting target on DIBELS. I can identify that through the dashboard. But what I can't do and what Performance Matters can do, the power of that platform is, as a leader, I can go in, I can identify all those kids that didn't hit DIBELS, I can see what teachers they're assigned. I can match all of these other indicators to tell a data story.
You sort of anticipated my question, and this may not be possible, but I was trying to figure out an overlay of the climate survey over this data. And maybe you can do it through Performance Matters and then link the two, because I think that's going to be a real indicator about what's going on in a particular building.
And that is something that we can definitely explore. I don't know, and Dr. Addison's the expert on the Performance Matters, but how we can thread that through Performance Matters, because what I think is so important for us to recognize when we're taking a look at data is that these visualizations, if you think about, as Dr. Addison makes fun of me with my triangles, my reverse funnels, the dashboard might be a entry point to say, whoa, this is a snapshot of this school. The power of Performance Matters is that then they can overlay all of these other data points to really dig into what do I do about it. Dr. Addison.
And if I could add in terms of kind of the complementary data monitoring power of Performance Matters, the other piece, as Ms. Sharon shared in terms of the building of monitoring dashboards, the link from the internal dashboards for staff also is designed to show kind of the lagging and the leading data, right? So we've already created a visual for schools around the lagging data, which the academic milestones serve as the lagging data because it's an end-of-year measure from last school year. But as schools are working to monitor toward this school year for their current kindergartners, we have reports that are available for schools that will pull in the data for them that says, all right, we know we're on track for end-of-year DIVLs, and here's the expectation. But how did my kindergarten students perform on that fall administration of DIVLs, and are they on the right track so that we know what supports and interventions we need to put in place? So that lagging and leading data, we're bringing that language back in terms of the importance of here's how you want them to end, here's how they ended. You can't do anything with that lagging data, but the leading data is where you can do the work, the actionable aspects to build toward that end-of-year goal for students.
Oh, my goodness. This is excellent. Oh, my goodness. So take me back, Dr. Addison. With Performance Matters, at some point, you said that teachers could look at the lagging data?
Yes, so Performance Matters has current data. It is connected to our student information system, so we work collaboratively with the technology team to have that data pushed for for teachers to access. In addition, students can take assessments in that platform. So it's kind of a really great way to look at multiple measures side by side.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, very good. This is so exciting. I can't wait till December the 5th. And you being able to gradually plop in other information too.
Yep.
But this is a lot of time and effort that has gone into this dashboard, and I hope our community is listening and paying attention, that their feedback is not only considered, but at times it's put forward into the work that we end up producing. The end result ends up being information that we heard from our parents to be able to better support and inform our schools. Because I know it's been a big thing with our community being able to see this data and to be transparent, but also this is another way for people to see that this work is happening and we are doing it. And then so now here's a way to be able to share the information with our external stakeholders. So thank you. This is good.
Yep, we're excited about it.
I love the idea. Is fabulous. My question is, the internal, will the public know that we're doing that level of detail to figure out what we need to do for the student? Because I think that's important. I know they can't access the data, but I don't know how much of it they know about.
Yeah, and it's part of the school improvement planning process, and this is one of the reasons we wanted to bring this here, is to start creating that knowledge and understanding. And one of the things I think that we, as you speak, Ms. Wolf, one of the other things that I think that we can do is thread this in potentially at some of our larger board conversations as we're talking about data, how we are utilizing some of these tools to really drill down. We might even be able to, well, I won't say that right yet.
I just think it's important that they see the level of detail, because when they look at the numbers, let's say the numbers for math that we showed the other day that are dismal, people think you're not doing anything. And this will show them, yeah, look at all the stuff we're trying to do, the information we're collecting, this is what the teachers know, this is what, so it looks as though you're doing everything possible. Just do they know that?
Yeah, I think we need to think about how we're communicating.
And also, you know, this needs to be presented to the county council. Because
It should, which is the very reason why I asked you about what you just shared, Dr. Addison. Did our teachers have access to this before, right? Because this has been in existence. We started using Performance Matter in 2017?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So it's been there, but maybe it's been people's comfort of being able to use the dashboard, but then we've done so much more now that it does seem like it's going to be an even more useful tool for, yeah. Let me ask this question, and maybe this is too much for this right here. I'm getting into too much of the detail. So I'm going to go back to our last board meeting where we were presented with the information that Ms. Wolf just referred to that showed where our students were. Now, in the dashboard for internal purposes, will this allow people to be able to dissect the information in terms of EML 1, 2, our students that are Black, African American? Okay. I just wanted, because that's important for our community to know as well, that we can dissect this data to be able to see where our students at. And I think, as Ms. Wolf stated, it'll be really important to continue to remind people that we are using it and how we're using it to inform the decisions that we're making, and how we're also monitoring our students. I'm just thinking, because there's just so much that the community does think that's not happening, right?
Absolutely. Ms. Harris?
Yeah, just echoing everything my colleagues have said. This is great. This is awesome. And I do have just a couple of questions. Actually, something Ms. Evans just said that made me kind of reflect back. So I was teaching in the system in 2017 when Performance Matters rolled out, and I can say, acknowledging that I'm not the most tech savvy, but I found it not an easy tool to use initially. And so I think a reveal around all of these upgrades and the way this has been transformed into a very nimble, very user-friendly tool is going to really help teachers. And so I'm sure you have a plan for how you are giving them a little time to kick the tires and play with it a bit and really get comfortable with it. But I do think it's going to be a powerful tool. And one of the questions I have is, I love the feature that this is live. This is a continuously updating tool. And so I'm just thinking about Dr. Addison when I asked this question. When we look at a tool like that is that is using data to create a picture in an ongoing way, the quality of the output is very dependent on the quality of the input. So who is inputting all of this school-to-school data, and how are we making sure that it's quality, it's accurate?
So all of this data is we work collaboratively. There's two offices that kind of sync up, and Dr. Addison can probably talk in more detail, but we have two offices that sync up. The Office of Student Data Systems in the technology among the technology team, and shared accountability. All of our data is they collaborate on ensuring the accuracy of the data. They set up functions to do two things. One, all of the data automatically gets sent to Performance Matters on a nightly. It's an automatic load, right? That happens nightly. For the dashboards, it's a similar type of thing where they pull the data from the data warehouse, for lack of a better term, and it feeds this. So it actually, like if a kid transfers to a different school, their data is going to follow them on the dashboard, and it's automatic. They set up systems and structures. I don't know if you have additional.
No, the process is very similar for Performance Matters in that it is all pulled from our student information system, or if it's not available in our student information system, then we work collaboratively with our technology team. So for example, the DIBELS assessment is through a vendor, right? So that vendor shares a file, and then we create a process so that it is loaded nightly to Performance Matters for access for staff.
So if I am a classroom teacher and I'm entering information in the system, then my data is actually being, used, is also part of this.
So from a Performance Matters perspective, for example, classroom grades, which we talked about. So when interims are entered, then that information is pulled and pushed into Performance Matters. Some of the required district assessment data, if it's not taken into the platform, then whatever the teacher enters is pulled and pushed. So there are aspects of what are district-wide, and then my assessment and data management team, which manages Performance Matters, they go out and train teachers on how to develop their own assessments in the platform. And so they could engage in that practice or process and have data that is entered that way as well.
Okay, that's amazing. And I do think as we roll this out, and I do hope the millions of viewers out there are, like, wow, this is great. Telling all their friends at the bus stop.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that we're the best team?
See? Okay. I knew it.
Co-equal. Co-equal, you know, what is it? Yeah, anyway, our ratings, I'm sure, is the same. Now, I have a clarifying question, just thinking back on several of the presentations that we've had around how we're monitoring reading in the elementary grades and the DIBELS assessment. And you mentioned that the DIBELS is being administered 3 times annually. I thought there was also this might not be the right term, but it was a more informal component of DIBELS that teachers could use sort of as an ongoing dipstick. So maybe aside from these 3 formal assessments, but also there were tools in there that helped them on an ongoing basis.
You need to come on down, Nikki.
Come on down. Join the coolest team.
See? Come on, Joy.
Good morning. Yes, that is correct. It's called progress monitoring, and it can happen in about every 2 weeks.
Okay.
For teachers to just get an update. Particularly, we recommend it for students that are not yet where we want them to be. Those are identified students that school teams can really document to say, this child is going to have ongoing progress monitoring to make sure that we're keeping up with their progress and they're on the right track.
And I think that's so important because as you were presenting, I was thinking, this is amazing, and this is exactly the work we need to do. But also thinking about how students come to us all different ways, all different pathways at all different times of the year and all different times of their academic journey. So like when a student just comes in grade 8, so we don't have, and they come from not anywhere near us, we don't have all this background data on them, and so this is giving us a more nimble way to assess and help keep them moving forward in their academic journey. And just one observation I have, I'm very interested in learning more about how we are assessing the competencies.
Oh, we're getting to that next.
Oh.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
That's the whole
Yep.
second
All right.
part of our presentation.
For today or another day?
Today.
Oh, well, I thought we're down to discussion. I thought we were.
Oh, no, that was, I knew there was a mid-discussion, and now we've got the whole second.
You know, we knew we were getting out too soon.
Going too far, going too fast, yeah. Okay,
So-
yes, I'm very interested to, yes,
So
yes.
this is, and again, this is why we wanted to bring this to Strategic Planning Committee, because you all were so integral when we brought this last year in really helping us shape the work. And the vision of where we were going with this. So now that we've kind of updated you on what we've done around the academic milestones with information, sharing, data dashboards, performance all of that, there's that whole other component of the core competencies and the experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And while we identified the framework for that, what the work that we're doing right now, and I believe there's a full board presentation happening in February-ish around where we land with this is why we wanted to come to you all first, is we need to now build out, like we did the academic milestones all last year, now we need to identify what are the experiences that all students need to have. And part of that, Ms. Harris, as you just asked, is when we identify what those experiences are, that's the first step. Then we got to figure out how are we monitoring it, monitoring the participation and experiences of those students in that. What will that look like? How can we mold it into the tools that we have? Because as far as I know, there are very few, if any, other districts kind of approaching a local accountability framework or a tool such as this that merges both experiences, both the experiences and the academic milestones to tell a story. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Addison to kind of talk about where we are with the experiences work so we can dive in a little bit more to feedback around that.
Next slide, please. All right, so similar to what Ms. Sharon just shared, we believe that all students should have similar experiences or the same experiences as they matriculate through the district. And having differences across schools or a lack of consistency of what is offered across schools is just not what we want to do. So the intent of this component or this aspect of the pathway is really meant to ensure that at each level, all students are having the same experience that contributes to their alignment with the competencies and being prepared for college, career, and community. Next slide, please. So a few questions as we've been engaging with stakeholders around the experiences and receiving feedback around these. These are some of the questions that we have been leveraging in terms of our framing discussion. How does the experience connect to the competencies and to the curriculum? What is the current level of participation for this experience? What barriers will we need to overcome to ensure that all students can participate? And what resources are needed? And so I'm going to take you through and show you some of the experiences that we have drafted out by each level next. Next slide. All right, so we begin with all students, K to 12, what are we looking for? So when we think about experiences, we want all of our students to participate in some level of district-wide college, career, and community readiness sponsored day. So it's going to be appropriate at the elementary level, appropriate at the middle school level, and appropriate at the high school level. But we recognize the value of ensuring that there's a district-wide and the district kind of manages it and ensures that it looks the same for all students. Also, another thing that we know is the importance and the value of students engaging in field trips to things like museums and historic landmarks around the county to learn the county, and it may be broader than the county, but one of the things we know is just the value of where you go to school and where you're learning to inform and be a part of the instructional program. Next slide, please. So beginning solely with the elementary experiences, what I will share is the grades that are indicated. This is what we're currently thinking. So again, this is a work in progress. And if you reflect back on those framing questions as you see these types of experiences, but here are some of the things that we've listed out in terms of some valuable experiences at the elementary level. What I will share is part of what we are also building as we are continuing to identify what some of these experiences might be, is looking at what the literature says, right? So we know that the literature talks about the value of engagement with music, for example, for some students in terms of the connection to the academic improvement. We know that we are in a time, this era for our younger generations as it relates to technology. So STEM education is a highly valued area when we think about things such as AI, so that ability to get students interested early is important. And then also the importance of service, right? So, we think about college, career, and community. What's your community engagement and instilling in students early on the value of giving back to the community, engaging in service opportunities? Next slide, please. So going to the middle school level, again, here are some opportunities or experiences that we have preliminarily identified. One of the things I've failed to mention is as we were working with stakeholders and trying to identify what some of these experiences are, there's intentionality to not have it be a one-on-one lineup of what is expected for graduation. What is things that are above and beyond what a student needs to graduate, because there's value in the diverse experiences that we can offer for students. So there may be some overlap, but we do want to intentionally say, what are some things that you don't have to take a course for, but it's built into your course that you can experience and you don't necessarily need it for graduation. And so when we think about the middle school experience, part of what we have identified is that civic engagement. We know the value of exercising your right to vote. So the mock election for the student member of the board and other election registration, education, outdoor education, right now, that is currently offered for our students. But we also recognize we still have more work to do in that area because some of our students with disabilities or students who are receiving special education services may not be able to access that. So how do we ensure when we're thinking about some of these experiences that we're reaching all students regardless of their services that they may be receiving? And additionally, and you saw in the video earlier, in terms of things such as Finance Park, and we know that our community has had interest in regards to how are we supporting students with being financially savvy, like the knowledge and finances that they need to understand and how to engage with. Next slide or not.
While we're waiting on the next slide, I was going to say I appreciate that we have a continuous commitment to educational equity, particularly how you have the framing questions, which is looking through our work with an equity lens. I know that's not called out, but I just wanted to call that out, that we do that in our work, and it's infused. Particularly, I'll just use an example for the kindergarten experience, how you talked about making certain that we introduce our students to music. And we had committed, and it was prior to COVID, to taking a look at the budgets for music programs on an annual basis to ensure that our students who maybe didn't have the resource to be able to rent or own an instrument had that ability through the system, looking at the music programs and their budgets and everything. I just wanted to call that out while we were waiting on the PowerPoint to come back up, but just the level of that we're focusing on equity is really important.
And just to add to what you're saying, if you go back a slide, if we can just go back one slide, for instance, we just celebrated the 60th anniversary of outdoor education, correct? So we're like, okay, well, that's great and all. Why are you putting that in here? That's old new. It's an old program, but it serves a lot of value. But we know our students do not experience outdoor education equitably. When you break down the racial demographic of who participates in outdoor ed, there is a big discrepancy. I have worked in 7 different middle schools. I have done outdoor ed in 7 different places, and how kids experience that is very different. So part of this work is not just identifying new experiences, but figuring out the experiences that we know are trademarks in MCPS. How are we making them equitable for all?
And I did notice the outdoor education. I thought about Ms. Harris because she was able to attend the 60th year celebration. And so by you having the framing questions and I saw the outdoor education, then I knew that we were given a level of detail to, as you mentioned, the students that could not participate, and how do we change that, or the students that aren't attending, like what are the reasons? So just appreciate that.
Yeah, and I was at the 60th anniversary celebration on Saturday, and one of the things I really appreciated is they gave kind of a real historical perspective. And let's, take the victory lap. We have been on the cutting edge of this, way out in front, for a very long time. And you look at the experience and look at the inequities. And I know when my son was in middle school and we were getting ready to do the outdoor education experience, and talking to the principal about, because, the PTA was helping make sure the information was getting out and the forms were coming back. There's a lot of pieces to that. And talking about the students who typically don't engage. And a lot of it was sort of a cultural thing about when you let your kids spend the night away from you, and how you can kind of adapt the programming. Because one of the things that was shared on Saturday is, back in the day, when it first started, outdoor ed was a whole week. Mm-hmm. It was like summer camp, and the kids did things like write letters home. What kid has written a letter home? But anyway, they would write letters home, and they read a letter from a kid who took part in outdoor ed in like 1972, and he was saying, this is so much fun, and that's how they trick you, because now they're making us learn. And I'm like, and the power of fun in learning is something that I think gets not discussed and not emphasized enough. Because when you are having fun, you are learning. And that is, when you make an activity or an experience or a class something that is fun and engaging, people want to go. People want to be part of it. And it's not like, oh. And so I think that's part of the work of education. It is fun. It should be fun. And how we are really acknowledging that in the work that we're doing. So anyway.
So I don't want to keep us here, but should we put on there for the high school experience, Summer Rise?
Can we go to the next slide, please?
Oh, okay. So I missed that. Okay. Oh, I thought we had got to high school. I forgot the slide went out.
Next slide, please. Thank you. So to your question, Mrs. Evans, I think we can consider summarize. One of the things that we have to be cognizant about and think about is some of those questions, right? What would be some of the barriers, the challenges to ensure access for all
You're right.
in a situation like that? However, the value of And what, I know in terms of things, some of the aspects of Summarize is that experience to,
I was thinking.
gain some experience in a field you might be interested in. I think that's where we can think about what could be the opportunity in our experiences here.
Right. Okay.
As we reflect on the goal around this. But at the high school level, we thought about ensuring that, for example, students complete one or more rigorous courses as defined by either being dually enrolled, AP/IB enrollment, and/or CTE. It's not a requirement, but we know the value and the experience of that. Additionally, attend at least one college fair by 10th grade. We know that some students don't have an opportunity to do that. And again, when we have these experiences identified, we're talking about how the district is supporting students and families in doing this, not a burden that would be put on the family to ensure that they do for their child. And so that's the benefit, the vision around the experiences is what are we as a district going to do to support and ensure that students and their families experience some of these experiences. Next slide, please.
And that makes sense, absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, so where do we go from here? Those are the experiences that we have drafted out. We're bringing this to you. We want to hear feedback around these experiences for you. There are so many complexities around not just, everyone thinks, well, it's easy. Let's just put these experiences on paper and then press go. But if we're really doing it to ensure equity across the district for students, we are going to need to build in how we're tracking and monitoring progress. There's budget implications for some of this stuff. We have to do an assessment of the current state to say, if we say outdoor education, for instance, if that's what we're putting in this document, what do we see happening school by school? And then how are we helping to support a different message and vision? So we are continuing to work with community partners, student groups, staff associations to get feedback on the experiences and input on what we would need to do to fully implement these. So we have met with principals so far. We have met with the association leadership. We are going to the councils on teaching and learning in the next few weeks to get a large group of students. We have worked with central service staff. We have worked with senior leadership. Working with you. We're also going to be working with our students as well. We're going to be bringing students to the table. And then we also are going to reach out to our community partners and stakeholders to get some of their feedback and input before we finally say, this is what we want to do. And we want to make sure that our experiences are building on each other from year to year, right? And develop professional learning and resources to ensure effective implementation and equity. I mean, it is going to be, even one of these experiences, to make sure that it is equitable across the district is going to be a heavy lift. So how are we doing that? And again, developing and monitoring processes and benchmarks. So and our goal is to have the public launch of these are the experiences at the February board meeting, one of the February board meetings, to say, this is where we're at, and these are our next steps. That's kind of our timeline. If we come back to the, if comms can flip me to my laptop again and go to the feedback, just to share a little bit of how we're seeking feedback. So what we're doing is, like, we worked with the principal PLCs, for instance. We didn't just want the feedback from the principals. We actually asked them to go back to their leadership teams, their full leadership teams, and engage in discussion to give us robust feedback about these experiences, because we really want to make sure that we're getting as much feedback as possible. So what we've asked them to do the month of October, and we're utilizing this particular Google site and tool to do it, a little bit of different way to engage than we've done in the past. So we're trying to be a little innovative in how we're collecting the information, is we almost put together like a lesson on a Google site for some of our stakeholder groups and for our principals. And what they do is they kind of go through this with their staff. They can show the video on the academic milestones. Staff should be, understanding that. They learn about each of the competencies, how they're defined. So they go through that. They have an opportunity to look at that. And then they get an opportunity to look at the live draft. We keep trying to tell people we want to bring this to you in a little bit of a messy form because we want to have you help shape it. So in this document, they're able to click on it. It's a live form. It gives the experience, the research-based rationale that they can go through. And then going back, We are asking them all to complete this Google survey, which basically asks for some basic information, what they like about the experiences, where their concerns are, what barriers we would need to overcome, because that really gets to that equity component, and then what we're missing. So, we might get some energy around, there's a whole experience that we didn't even think about that either would need to be added or considered as part of this. Our goal is to have all of this collected by the end of November from all of our different areas and stakeholders, so that in December, we can work on a collaborative team internally to start figuring out how do we take this information and this feedback to lock down the experiences so that we can launch. And that's kind of high level where we're at right now with this. And now we'll turn it over to you all for consideration.
I don't really have any questions. I think this is excellent work. I'm only always concerned that the discussions be at a level that all of our parents can understand. And other than that, I think that you're on the right track. With regard to the experiences, I kind of wondered, like say the outdoor education, we have kids that have certain meals that they can eat. Do you consider all of those kind of things when you're planning for that?
As somebody that coordinated outdoor ed for about 15 years at the different schools I was at, yeah, I mean, students even get an opportunity if the cafeteria can't provide the food, that they can bring their own food, refrigerate it for them. We also do, at least based on my own personal experiences in schools, in communities where I have found that the families don't feel comfortable with the overnight, that they have the option to pick their child up at the end of the day and then bring them back the next day. And I know that they are constantly evolving, and I know cost is not a barrier either, because if they need financial aid, we do cover that, because it's not a cheap, my son just went, it was not a cheap trip to take.
No, I was just wondering, there are a lot of equity considerations, as Ms. Evans said, so I was wondering how we handle that. Ms. Harris?
Yeah, and I do appreciate you saying, there are budget implications for some of this, and we've been talking often, but we, very, very recently too, the equity of, field trip opportunities available to students. And it's very dependent on what school you're at, because those tend to be so supported externally. And so how we are taking steps to ensure true equity and excellence of opportunity in those, regardless of where a student lives. And that's a budget item. That's for us to actually keep our eyes on. And I do love, and and you probably have it, but I would really love to see a nice little graphic that outlines these 9 competencies, because I think collectively they really do get to how do you become prepared to be, a member of the world community. What skills do you need to, what are your life skills that you need? And, and highlighting personal well-being as part of that critical thinking, which is key. And one of the things that I can't help but think, in, threads of multiple conversations recently is, I think these competencies get to some of the concerns I had as a CTE teacher, and how we were saying we were making students career ready, but some of the internal policies of the system weren't letting us hold students accountable to the expectations they would meet as soon as they walked into a workplace. And so this gets to some of those concerns, and that, we have to be communicating to students, you have to be on time. When you have a job, when you're going to a career experience, you have to show up. If you're not going to be there, you have to let people know. You can't stand there on your phone the whole time. Building those skills, because I do think a lot of this work is doing an end run to moderate what we are beginning to truly understand through, neuroscience and brain development research is we have to moderate the influence on the early and continuous exposure of screens to kids as their brains are developing. Because I think we're seeing a direct correlation between that early and continuous exposure to screens and students, young people being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD at increased levels, because there are real effects on brain development of that continuous exposure. And so we have to do an end run around that to help students develop the kinds of skills they don't develop from spending a lot of time on screens. And so, and being able to engage in a face-to-face conversation, sit at a table with people, hear them, not just talk at them, collaborate, you know, those are skills that you have to develop. It's not necessarily, I mean, you have to learn how to do those things. And I really do appreciate this work at recognizing that so much of the work we do to make students truly life-ready is more than how well they're mastering literacy and mathematics and those kinds of things. So I so appreciate the way that we're looking at this, and I agree with you, Ms. Sharon. I don't see, I don't see other school systems doing this work. I really do think we are blazing a trail here. So, thank you.
Can I just ask, what is Finch Robotics?
Miss Hazel can come up, but it is a new program that they're launching in 2nd and 4th grade. The technology team actually has helped with some of the purchasing of, but it's a robotics program for 2nd and 4th graders, brand new, starting this year.
It's in every school?
I believe so.
Yes, so we started it in our elementary schools, and it's really like a coding, starting with coding program so that we can get students those experiences. We're working with our media specialists and some identified teachers in schools to begin the Finch Robotics program. It's kind of helping to give the kids the experiences so that as they go along the pathway, they will, particularly in a lot of our schools that just don't have access, a lot of students don't have access to these types of opportunities outside of school. We want to provide that to them as early as possible.
So it is available in every school, every 2nd and 4th grade classes?
Yes.
Okay, I just had not heard of it. That's very good, thank you. I don't have any further questions unless my fellow board members have any.
Great.
Just want to thank you. This was excellent, excellent. Because when I first looked at it, I was trying to figure out, okay, I'm the parent now. What am I really going to get out of this? But this really helped me a lot. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Hazel, for joining us when needed. So we're adjourned. Thank you.